Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Grow Your Own Dye. If you're new here, my name is Becca and I'm a hand spinner, knitter and natural dyer, and you're very welcome to my slightly echoey conservatory in West Wales. If you're an old friend, then welcome back. Now, I've been messing around with natural dyes on wool and cotton and linen since I was a teenager really, but I've always foraged for the materials that I've used in my dyeing. I've never actually grown my own dye materials in my garden. So this year I decided it was the year that I was going to grow my own dye plants. And I thought it would be a really good fun thing to record the process and invite you along to see how I'm doing it and what works and what doesn't, because I really don't know what's going to work. In episode 1, I went through the plants that I was going to grow, and I will link that in the description below and also at the end of this video. And in this video, I'm actually going to start planting some of the seeds. I'm just going to turn the camera around and show you my bits of equipment that I've got ready to start sowing my seeds. So first off, most important thing, labels, and these are just kind of reused bits of plastic from ice cream tubs, because yes, I'm afraid I do eat ice cream. And I've put the name on, I've just put like the short name on, I haven't put the Latin name on, and that is always a very important thing to do, and people quite often do it at the end of the process, but I find if I do that I sometimes forget. So I do it before I start, and then I know I've got the label ready to go. So I've been into the shed and I've been collecting various things, and I always try to reuse any plastic kind of tubs or seed things, and I think I bought some plug plants in these a few years ago, so I just keep reusing what I can. And these are great. These are part of mushroom kits. So you buy the mushroom kit and grow your mushrooms, and then you've got these great ready-made little containers that are like your mini greenhouses. And oh boy, you can see they've been outside. Probably should have washed these before I put them on video, shouldn't I? Anyway, so those are an option for me. Then I also have this, and this is really great fun. This is for making soil blocks so that you don't have to have any plastic. Oh, maybe I'll get some oil on that. Then the last thing I've got is these little tubs with lids, and they're little mini propagators, and they go on this heated propagator that just fits on the windowsill. And we don't have a greenhouse, so we use our conservatory as our sort of area to start our plants, and they just go on here like this. And it's a very neat little device. Oh gosh. Yeah, I really should have washed these before I started filming. There's a slug in there. Yeah. Next job, wash all these. For growing my seeds, I'm using John Innes seed compost, which is a #1. It does contain some peat, and my green credentials have just hit the floor and gone rock bottom, because I normally use peat-free compost apart from seed compost. I haven't found a peat-free compost that I like for starting seeds. If you've got one that you can recommend, I'd love to try it out, because I don't like using things with peat in, but when I use anything else for starting seeds, I find I get a really low germination rate and I get damping off of my seedlings. So that's why I'm using this. Let me know if you know of a good alternative. I shall also be using vermiculite, and both of these came from our local gardening club that basically is a cooperative, and they buy vermiculite and compost amongst other things, and then you pay a discounted rate if you're a member of the gardening club. So that's a very good organisation, and I'm sure you'll be able to find something like that in your area. The first one I'm starting is pot marigolds, and these are an annual, meaning that they flower, go to seed and die all in 1 year. They're really, really good to start. They don't need any heat to germinate. If it hadn't been such a wet year, I probably would have started these outside, but I'm going to start them in the little seed blocks and just start them off in here and harden them off before I plant them out. I'm going to use my seed blocker, but I've just taken some of this loose compost out of the main bin and I'm going to wet it because the soil blocker works much better if you've got quite damp compost. So I'm just going to kind of make a bit of a mud pie. Yeah, you don't want to be kind of doing this with your hands without gloves and then going and making pastry, do you? Mud and pastry, probably not a good combination. Okay, so that's good and wet. And I'm just going to put it in here. So I'll get my soil blocker and squidge it down. I have oiled this. I've got my sewing machine oil out, which I've now got mud over, of course, because, you know, it's the type of thing you do. Okay, so we've got our soil in our soil blocker. And press it out, and then you can put a seed in each one of those. Marigolds don't like root disturbance, so I'm just going to put a little marigold seed on there, just sprinkle a little bit of vermiculite on the top, and they're going to grow away. And once they're ready to be hardened off, I can take this whole container outside, harden them off, and then plant them outside without any root disturbance. So I'm just going to carry on and do this, and I'll come back to you when I'm ready to do the planting of the seeds. So here are our little pot marigolds, and yes, I do have mud under my fingernails, and yes, I am putting it up on YouTube. Okay, just open these out, and they're quite a good size, these seeds. You're not going to lose those. And then just going to put one in each little hole. Now I'm also going to direct sow some of these, so I'm going to have a patch in the garden that I just kind of sprinkle on the ground, because in theory that should work, but I do have quite a lot of slugs in this garden. I don't necessarily know how many are going to survive, and I don't use pellets, I use beer traps. I know they're okay, but some slugs prefer my plants to Guinness, which is what I put in my slug traps. Okay, so all done. And now a little bit of vermiculite over the top. And hopefully within 10 days or so, they will have germinated. And I'm just going to put them on the windowsill. And I was thinking about putting their lids on, but I don't think that's necessary, because these are, these are hardy annuals. They germinate pretty quickly. So that's our first seed done. Our next seed is going to be red onions, and I'm going to eat the onions, obviously, but then the skins I'm going to use for dyeing, and they have a much darker colour than your regular onion skin, so I thought this would be a good fun one to grow. And I'm going to multi-sow them in this little plug tray. So I'm going to do 3 seeds in each one and then plant them out as a little kind of group, and hopefully the idea is that they push apart and you don't need quite as much space for planting out, but you still get a good sized onion. Well, that's the theory. Never done that before, so let's just have a look at these size. Let's have a look at the size of these seeds. And these seeds actually came as part of the subscription I have to a magazine. So we'll be able to kind of count out 3 for each little plug quite easily. So I have my little planter and I'm just sort of counting out 3 seeds and popping them in. And this is actually the end of a crab fork. And as we live by the coast, then we can get fresh crab from the fisherman who lives just across the street from us. But crab forks only come in packs of 4 and there's only 2 of us. So I've nicked one as a gardening tool, and I have to say it works really well because it's got this little sort of blunt end and then it's got your little forky end, obviously for picking out your crab meat from the claws. There you go. So I shall just carry on doing that until this whole thing's filled up. Well, that was very handy. It used all of them up. So let's just sprinkle a bit of vermiculite across the top. Don't quite know why I'm singing vermiculite. Vermiculite, vermiculite. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. The next 4 lots of seeds I'm going to do on my little heated propagator. So I have removed the slugs from these and just filled them up with compost. Just sort of pushing it down because I'm going to put the seeds on top and then top them off with vermiculite, and then they're going to have their little lids on. And the first one I'm going to do is the Dyer's chamomile. These are teeny tiny seeds, so I am literally just going to, if I can, ooh, well, that was a bit more than I expected. Right, I'm just going to kind of tap them over the surface. And then good old vermiculite. And then I've got my little label, and then he's going to have his little hat. Okay, so next we've got the field scabious. Oh, these are a bit bigger, these seeds, but I'm still going to just sort of spread them out because I'm going to prick these out when they've germinated and put them into individual pots. So these are hardy perennial, so it means that basically they come back each year. So you put them in the ground, they grow over the summer, then die down over the winter, but you leave them in the ground because they come back the next year. And you harvest the flowers. They're a very good insect attractor, very attractive. I did say in the last video I was a little bit sceptical as to how good the blue was going to be, but I'm going to try them, and they're a nice plant. So if it doesn't work as a dye plant, it's still a nice plant that's going to attract insects. Now the next one I'm doing is woad. And woad you have to soak, they say overnight. This has just been soaked this morning. And I'm just going to sort of pick these out and just place them. And they shouldn't be covered, apparently, just vermiculite or perlite. No compost. Ooh, this is fiddly. Okay, I'll come back to you when I've done that. Our next one is Dyer's Weld, and this is a hardy biannual, which means that it lives for 2 years. In the first year, it's just greenery. In the second year, it puts up its flower spike, and that's what you get the colour from. And then after it's flowered and gone to seed, it dies. We won't get any colour from this year, but we will next year. So I'm going to do exactly the same as I've just done for the rest of them. You probably don't need to see that. So I'll come back to you when I get to my last one. Our next seeds are madder, and you get red from madder. And it is a perennial, and you get colour from the roots. So this is definitely long term because it's not going to be ready to harvest for at least 5 years, potentially 7 years. If I can get hold of some rhizomes, so some roots that you can actually just plant in the ground and they carry on growing, I will. But I was only able to find seeds when I was looking. So I'm going to give them a go. Not sure how successful this is going to be because you are supposed to use very fresh madder seeds, and I don't know how old these are. They came from China. They don't have a packing date on them. I mean, fingers crossed that they are this year's seeds, but they might not be. But, you know, gardening's all about experimenting, so I'm going to plant those and see what happens. I've sown all my seeds, and I'm going to come back to you in a few weeks' time when they're ready to prick out. You can hear my neighbour's just started up his mower and the sun has come out, which is really lovely. It's still quite windy, which is why we're inside, because you just wouldn't hear me if I was outside because it would just be wind noise. I hope that you found that useful. I'd love to hear if you're growing a dye garden and what you're planting, so please leave a comment below. So I live on the coast and I'm in Pembrokeshire, which is quite mild. So the second week in March is about when I like to start my seeds. It seems to be the right sort of time. Obviously it's going to depend where you are in the world as to, you know, kind of when you start your seeds, but wherever is appropriate for you. It is also worth noting that woad is quite invasive, and I do know that there are some states in America where you can't grow woad because it has in fact just kind of invaded all the natural habitat. So just bear that in mind, and obviously there are other options for blue, and certainly indigo is going to give you a good blue. But as I'm in the UK and woad would have been the traditional plant used in my area, then I thought I would give it a go. So until next time, happy gardening.